Hello! In this video, I will show you how to convert decimals to fractions or mixed numbers. We've seen that there are two types of decimals, terminating and repeating decimals. First, I will show you how to convert terminating decimals to fractions or mixed numbers. Our first example is 0.75. To convert this to a fraction, we need a numerator and a denominator. Since 0.75 is smaller than 1, we know that the numerator will be smaller than our denominator. Our numerator is everything to the right of the decimal point, so both the 7 and the 5 digits. Now we need to figure out what we need to make our denominator. Since the last decimal place is in the hundredths column, this means we make 100 our denominator. But we're not done yet. We have a fraction, but we have to simplify it. To do this, we need to divide both the numerator and the denominator by the greatest common factor. A factor of 75 is any number so that when you multiply that number by another number, you get 75 as your answer. To check for the GCF, write out all of the possible factors for both 75 and 100. So let's do that. First, we need to list some factors of 75. Two numbers that multiply to give us 75 are 1 and 75, 5 and 15, and then 3 and 25. Now let's do this for 100 as well. 1 and 100 multiplied to give us 100. 2 and 50 multiplied together to give us 100. 4 and 25 multiplied together to give us 100. And then 5 and 20 multiplied together to give us 100. From this list, we can see that 25 is the greatest common factor for both 75 and 100. So let's divide the numerator by 25 and the denominator by 25. Doing so gives us an answer of 3/4, which is the simplest fraction for this expression. Our next example is negative 0.4. Like this last one, we need to convert this to a fraction, and everything that is to the right of the decimal point is our numerator, and then we need to pick a denominator based on how many terms or digits are on the right side of the decimal point. In this case, 4, which is in the tenths place, is the only digit that's to the right of the decimal point. So our fraction is out of 10. And then notice that the negative sign comes before the fraction. And then like the last one, we need to simplify this as well. The greatest common factor of 4 and 10 is 2, and so we can divide both sides by 2. So 4 divided by 2, then 10 divided by 2. And this simplifies to negative 2/5, which is the simplest fraction you can make for this expression. In this example, we have 2.6. The difference between this number and the last two examples is that this one is greater than 1. So that means we are writing a mixed number instead of just a fraction. The way this works is everything that becomes to the left of the decimal point is written before the fraction. And then we take care of everything to the right of the decimal point like we did the last two examples. Notice that 6 is the only digit that is to the right of the decimal point, so that means we are writing this fraction out of 10 instead. So our mixed number is 2 times 6 over 10. Notice that 6 over 10 is not in simplest form, so we need to take the GCF of both 6 and 10. The GCF between 6 and 10 is 2, so we need to divide the numerator and the denominator by 2. And doing so gives us 2 3/5 as our final answer. Now let's figure out how to convert repeating decimals to fractions or mixed numbers. Our first example of this is 0.7 repeated. This technique involves setting up an equation. And so let's set an equation n equals 0.7 repeated. Since only one digit repeats to the right of the decimal point, we need to multiply both sides of the equation by 10. So we're going to multiply the left side n by 10, and we're going to multiply the right side 0.7 repeated by 10. Doing so gives us an equation 10n equals 7.7 repeated. And our next step is to get rid of the repeating term of the decimal. To do so, we need to subtract an n from the left side and subtract the original number 0.7 repeated from the right side. And this should be a negative sign right here. And so the n equals 0.7 repeated, notice it comes from the very first step of the equation right here. And so we have 10n equals 7.7 repeated, and we're subtracting n from the left side, and we're subtracting 0.7 repeated from the right side. And so remember, our end goal is that we are trying to make this to be a whole number instead of a repeating decimal. And so doing this operation gives us a new equation of 9n equals 7. And then our last step is to get n by itself. So that means we need to divide both sides of the equation by 9. And voila! We have our answer, n equals 7/9. And so 7/9 is our final answer right here, which cannot be simplified any further. Our next example is 3.34 repeated. Like our last example, we need to set up an equation. So this time, let's let n equal to 3.34 repeated. Notice that in this one, both the tenths and the hundredths place repeat. So this time we need to multiply both sides of our equation by 100. Doing so gives us a new equation of 100n equals 334.34 repeated. And now we have to clear the repeating side of the decimal. So we're going to subtract n from the left side and subtract 3.34 repeated from the right side to get rid of the part of the decimal that repeats. Doing so gives us a new equation of 99n equals 331. And to get n by itself, you divide both sides by 99. And this gives us an improper fraction, 331 over 99. But we want a mixed number. We know that 300 divided by 100 gives us 3. And 99 is just smaller than 100. And then our numerator is 331. So what we need to do is we will multiply 99 times 3. 99 times 3, so we have 9 times 3, which gives us 27. And then 9 times 3 again gives us 27, plus 2 equals 297. And so we see that 99 goes into 331 3 whole times. So 3 will be what's in front of the fraction. And then we are going to be using the same denominator, 99. So we need to figure out what we need to make our numerator. And this is where the 297 plays in. So what we need to do is subtract 297 from 331. And so it will carry over the fraction. So cross out the 3, make that a 2, it's a 0. Change this 3 to a 13. And then because 1 is smaller than 9, we need to change this to a 12. 12 minus 9 gives us 3. And then 11 minus 7 gives us 4. So our new numerator, is 34. And so this gives us a fraction 34 over 99, which is the answer that we want, which cannot be simplified any further. Then our next example is negative 1.6 repeated. So let's set up our equation n equals negative 1.6 repeated, and since 6 is the only digit that repeats to the right of the decimal, we'll multiply both sides by 10, which gives us the equation 10n equals negative 16.6 repeated. Then we will subtract n from the left side and subtract negative 1.6 repeated from the right side. Notice that this one is positive, and that is because negative 1.6 repeated just gives us 1.6 repeated. So we're subtracting n from the left side and we're adding 1.6 repeated to the right side. And this gives us the equation 9n equals negative 15. And then we can divide both sides by 9 to get n equals negative 15 over 9. And then we can simplify this further for an answer of negative 5/3. But this is an improper fraction, so we need to make this a mixed number. 3 goes into 5 one whole time, so we have negative 1 to the left of the fraction. And we have 2 left over, and so this gives us a mixed number of negative 1 2/3 as our final answer.